And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what's going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, share a little dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And if you happen to be listening anywhere else and you wanted to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Coffee Talk on YouTube. That's at Coffee Talk Live. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat, and you can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. As we get ready to jump off here, naturally, I do read through as many comments as is reasonable. And so I'll say hello to some of the people that are joining us so far. I see Helter is with us today. Dragon is here. Raccoon, Jeff, Armored, and Caps. Special guest appearance today. Uncle, who was sitting on my lap, cutting off my circulation. 25 pounds of tuxedo cat there, folks. 25 pounds of tuxedo cat being being a big baby right now, sitting on my lap. I see Sven is here, as well as Puck and JJ. Don't step on anything, Uncle. I know some of you can't see what I'm talking about. And hello to everyone else who may be listening and not able to chime in. That's fine. Hope you're doing all right today as we get ready to jump off here and see what's going on in the world today. I will remind you all, of course, and I see that I'll have to continue to do this, that I am podcasting to two different channels currently, and that's Coffee Talk and Prepper University. But by the first week of June, I'll be pulling out of Prepper University, and the podcast will only be on Coffee Talk. And that's the link on the screen now. So if you're watching on Prepper University and you want to continue to catch the podcast, as of the first week of June, I'm going to switch it to Coffee Talk. And I'm still getting like 2/3 of the total views on Prepper University, by the way. So if you're on Prepper University and you don't want to lose contact with the podcast, that's where it's going to be. Bye. Uncle left the room. And here's Michael saying hello today. And I'll just keep reminding people every day so that they'll know, so that they'll be aware in case, because like I said, obviously a lot of people on Prepper University watch the podcast, but I want to rededicate the channel back to its original function, which was prepping and homesteading and bushcraft and that kind of stuff, and keep this sort of thing on Coffee Talk where it was originally supposed to be in the first place. As we go ahead and catch up here, I see Lucky is here, as well as D-Lo. Don't know if you got a chance to see Uncle. He took off now. Yeah, he's a big boy. He is a big boy, Uncle is. And I'm going to start off with, we'll get to the point of the thumbnail here shortly. As you know, they were in talks in Istanbul, in Turkey. But I wanted to talk about one thing I wanted to run over with Pope Leo really quickly. Well, Pope Leo the 14th. And I just thought this was kind of hilarious, but it ties in historically with the Catholic Church. And this is a Newsner article. Pope Leo trading card sets have set a record. Tops. It's Tops. Remember Tops? They used to make like most of the trading cards back in the day before the big explosion in the market in the late 80s. Because remember, before, if you pick up a modern like Beckett's card guide, sports card guide, before 1987, the like maybe a quarter inch of the guide is from like 1913 to 1987. And then the rest of it is all modern era. And it's like a phone book. It's insane how many all of a sudden in the very end of the 80s, there was an explosion in the card market. And everybody started making cards, like football in particular. I remember one year, 2 companies are making football cards. And then the next year, it was almost 60 companies making football cards. And it actually bankrupted a lot of mom and pop trading card stores that were dedicated, that sold sports cards and other types of cards. It buried half of them. By the mid 90s, they were gone. But yeah, there are Pope trading card sets. And it says Pope Leo will be formally inaugurated as the next Pope May 18th. 69-year-old American born in Chicago will likely have the role until his death. They usually do, unless they retire. As with any job, Pope Leo will receive a salary while companies and others profit from the Pope through merchandise. Reportedly, a new trading card of Pope Leo has been released, and it's broken a sensational sales record, even trumping sports stars. Yeah, because he's the new Pope. But it's not, this sort of thing doesn't surprise me, because it goes right back to the old days of selling relics of the saints and all sorts of things the Catholic Church has done over the years to sell trinkets and baubles to earn extra money. I see Marvel Fan has joined us, as well as Flute Man. It reminds me of Blackadder. Remember Rowan Atkinson, Blackadder? Blackadder the First, which I believe was supposed to have taken place in the 1500s, when one of the other characters is going on about how he had a finger bone of one of the saints and that he spent a fortune on it and all this other stuff. And Blackadder, who was being an archbishop at the time, said, "Wow, that's amazing. And here I've been selling them in sets of 10. And I could have been breaking the sets up and selling them individually." Brilliant marketing. That just gets me. JJ says, not to mention the selling of Tetzels, however it's spelled. Tetzels? Not Tzitzis. Tzitzis is a Hebrew custom. Unless you're talking about something else, and I'm just mixing my things up. Tzitzis are, if you've ever seen like Orthodox Jewish people, on their pants, in the front and in the back, there's these 2 intertwined, or 4. There's 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and it's a white and blue and a blue cord that have been wound. It's usually a couple, like 3 or 4 inches long. Those are tzitzis, or tefillin. Fluke Man says, I'm assuming more for the Vatican. How much is enough? I'm guessing infinity is the number I'm looking for. Yeah, there's never enough. There's never enough money. But this doesn't surprise me at all that this Pope Leo XIV trading card is from Topps. And of course it's going to sell out, because he just became Pope. And like with all trading card sets, it's an impulse purchase. You know what I mean? JJ says, when a coin in the coffer rings, a soul from Purgatory Springs, was a reference to Martin Luther. That's right. That is correct. That is correct. So this doesn't, without getting into all the rest of this article, there's going to be a lot of merch, plastic little figurines, I'm sure, collector's plates. What was it, the Bradford Exchange, where they used to do stuff like that? Yeah, there's always a racket. There's always a racket when it comes to Catholicism. And, again, if you're Catholic, you're Catholic. And what am I going to tell you? If you're comfortable with that, that's cool. I don't agree with Catholicism, and I don't like the way that their leadership does things necessarily. I don't like the idea even that the Pope is supposed to be Christ's vicar on earth, and that they can make decisions on Yeshua, Jesus's behalf, while he's away. I'm pretty sure that that's not quite how that works. I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can do that. I think some people are going to have a lot of splaining to do at some point in the future. As we'll go ahead and we'll just jump into the nature of the thumbnail here. The nature of the thumbnail, because there was this, and this is an independent article, Ukraine and Russia war, latest news. Zelensky calls Trump after Moscow and Kiev agree to 1,000 prisoners swap. So yeah, while Trump was on his way back from being overseas, he had a conference call with Volodymyr Zelensky and some other European leaders. Because I don't know how things went I think they were in Istanbul, Turkey, right? And this is about as close of an update as I could get on this. I don't know if anything has quite been resolved yet. I don't think so, but there will be a prisoner exchange at the very least. So here we go. Volodymyr Zelensky has spoken to Trump over the phone after Moscow and Kiev sat face-to-face in Istanbul, for the first direct peace talks in 3 years. Russia and the Ukraine agreed to swap 1,000 prisoners of war each in the coming days. The heads of Moscow's delegation had claimed one of the largest such swaps since the conflict began. Vladimir Medinsky, not Volodymyr Zelensky, Vladimir Medinsky, added that a satisfied Moscow team was ready to continue speaking with Ukraine. Kiev was far less responsive about the talks, accusing Moscow of making, quote, unacceptable demands, which were detached from reality. In all fairness, that's both of them. Hence my moniker on the thumbnail. Neither leadership from either country can really be trusted, and both of them have been making unacceptable demands the whole time. Back to the article, Sir Keir Starmer and Mr. Zelensky agreed the Russian position in peace talks was unacceptable, the British Prime Minister said, adding that they had spoken with Trump also. The negotiations held in Istanbul's Dolmabahce Palace and mediated by a Turkish team took place after a turbulent 2 days cast doubt over whether the meeting would take place at all. Just as the talks were scheduled to begin, Kiev accused Russia of undermining peace talks in Istanbul by demanding last minute that the Turkish and U.S. representatives not be involved. Earlier on Friday, Donald Trump said he would meet Vladimir Putin as soon as something could be set up. So there you go. They will not stop. Ukrainian troops share doubts over peace. Why even talk to the troops? Soldiers don't know what's going on. Soldiers don't know what's going on. Soldiers in the last couple of world wars didn't even know the war was over. There you go. Nature Nerd says Catholic Pope and Saint card deck. Yeah, I'm sure there is one. And Fluke Man, if I can get it to come up, because now StreamYard is stalling. There we go. Fluke Man says Catholic comics with lightsabers crossover with Super Mario Brothers. Do you think? There used to be Christian comic books, Spire comics. And some of them are actually very heavily sought after, including Hansi, the girl who loved the swastika. Very, very famous comic book. And it's not what you would think. It's not what you would think. She was, it's a true story, actually. And the comic is based on an actual novel that was written by the girl in question, Hansi, who is talking about her experience in the Hitler Youth movement and then discovering that basically it was a sham, and then having to escape from Germany by the skin of her teeth, and then being outspoken against the Nazi regime regime afterwards. But a lot of people think the comic is really controversial because it shows her in her drawn on the cover in her Hitler Youth uniform with wartime flags in the background. Puck says Russia's demands haven't changed for 3 years except the terms or a Russian flag over Kiev. And Lucky says to check Chick Publishing, great Christian comics. Spire also did crossovers with Archie Comics back in the day. Anyways, as we turn into trivia night every time I start talking here. But yeah, neither of these places can really be trusted. Ukrainian government officials and Russian government officials, simply by the everything else, that they are Eastern European bloc, and they have lots of really bad history with one another anyways. Voldemort, you see him there in the newsreel, very untrustworthy individual, pretty dirty, has gotten rid of all the news agencies, if I remember this correctly, in the Ukraine that are not government run, has outlawed opposition's parties, political parties, has shut down Russian churches, which is what started this in the first place, if I'm not mistaken. And if anybody knows any different, go ahead and put it in the comment section and I'll flash it up there. Nature Nerd said saints have lots of biblical wisdom of how to live, and it's helpful. We can read about their lives. And he says Turkey knee trail meetings point for Ukraine peace talks. But yeah, they can't. They don't trust each other. They can't be trusted anyways. Puck says Google Bandera. Ukrainians regard him as a hero. They can't be trusted anyways. They're not going to get along with each other. They will stab each other in the back if they get the opportunity, just by the nature of how it is. Eastern Europeans do not like each other. They all look the same to us, but they know who they are, and they do not like each other. There's been a lot of bad blood in Eastern Europe for a long time. Some of the hate goes back centuries. And then something like this blows up out of control. Lukeman says, wasn't the war started because Ukraine was getting closer joining NATO? I've heard that also, and that could be part of it. But again, also without the Cold War, NATO really hasn't served much of a purpose. And as far as the U.S. is concerned, Puck mentions the U. I think you mean the USA, if I'm not mistaken there. Trump is going to do whatever's good for our end of it. If I were to hazard to guess, I would say he doesn't care about Russia or the Ukraine. But we can't keep funding it. And we sure as hell don't want to get into full-blown boots on the ground. Oh, okay. He says U.S. and NATO involvement. Is that what you mean? Yeah, and I'd rather see us out of it completely. We don't need to be funding it. We don't need to be over there. And, we get the people in here sometimes that are like, well, I stand with Ukraine. Okay, go ahead. Go over there and stand with them. You fund it. You send them money. You go. The big problem with activists and people like that is they want someone else to do something. Isn't that what protesting is? Trying to force someone else to take action? Often it is. And then, at which point do we get so invested that we reinstate the draft? And then we're dumping troops out there, which I'd rather see avoided. Maybe we should just let them fight. We don't have to be the world's police force, and I'm tired of that. I'm tired of the United States running all over the world, and being the world's police force and getting involved in everything. Getting involved in everything. And again, that's Teddy Roosevelt. You can take that all the way back to Theodore Roosevelt, because he's the one that started all of that for the United States. Prior to that, the U.S. minded its own damn business. He opened that door. He wanted the world to recognize the United States as a superpower. And so got us involved in everything. He got us into the Spanish-American War, and he wasn't even president. He pulled an okie doke to get us into the Spanish-American War. And then got us involved in Panama so that he could take over the canal project. And so on. But I don't like that idea. And then we end up in proxy wars. That's how we got involved in World War II. Because we were sending tons of supplies to Great Britain. Then eventually they attacked us. Pearl Harbor. Then we had to get involved directly. Peter says the draft is in conflict with the rest of the U.S. Constitution. And they still do it. How many times have they run a draft in the United States? They still do it. They still do the draft, and they'll open it again if they deem it necessary. And it will be enforced. Puck says Trump has one card to play, nuclear. He should have walked away January 20th. Instead, he took over payments. And then JJ says, indeed, why does the U.S. need to spend its resources and young people's lives for other countries? And he says there's also the sinking of the Lusitania, dragging the U.S. into World War I. Yeah, that's right. Sven says draft is enforced by the end of a gun. And Nature Nerd says, why did they stop the draft after Vietnam? It wasn't immediately after Vietnam that they stopped the draft, but the reason that they took the draft off, well, they claimed to take the draft off, but that was just to appease people because of how unpopular Vietnam was. Especially after the Pentagon Papers came out, people found out that we kind of stirred that hornet's nest up on purpose, the United States government, and that we never had to get involved in Vietnam at all. Didn't sit well with a lot of people. And just because of that, I don't know if you still have to do it, selective service. I had to. I had to do the, I was forced to do selective service in the late 80s. While they're telling me there's no draft anymore. Do 18-year-old men still have to register for selective service? That I'm not clear on. And Phil has joined us. Yeah, see, Sven says you still have to sign up for selective service. As long as you have to still sign up for selective service, because I wasn't sure. It's been a minute since I was involved in anything like that. If you still have to sign up for it, there's still the possibility of draft. Plain and simple. Any country, I don't care what they tell you, they'll go to conscription for armed services if they deem it necessary, no matter what's written anywhere. Yeah, and JJ says it's still required. They automatically signed my son up when he turned 18. Peter thinks that last year they expanded it to women. Really? Armand says you have to register for selective service unless you're a senator's son. Oh, quoting the song. Yes. Very good. I know what you're talking about there. I can't think of the name of the song, but I know exactly what you're talking about off the top of my head. But yeah, they'll automatically go to draft. They will automatically go to draft. Any country, no matter what they tell you. Oh, yeah, it's not necessarily constitutional, so they've still done it. They did it as far back as the, what was it, the Civil War. They instituted a draft. So there it is. And they'll punish you if you don't. They'll punish you if you don't. Yeah, and I see Sven and JJ say, was it Fortunate Son? That sounds right. Classic song. Classic song. Just can't remember the title. Couldn't remember the title. And yeah, I've seen some of those videos from the Ukraine, and yeah, they're literally at the point of dragging people off the street and forcing them into conscription. Fight for your country or else. Fight for your country or else. And don't understand the nature of your own freedom. And don't realize that you're not free. Even better. Even better. As I pointed out before, no matter what mode of government the system that you're in claims to be, whatever they call themselves, it's still a dictatorship. All governments are dictatorships. We're just kind of stuck. And I've been accused of being pro-government. I've been accused of being pro-government. There's a difference between being pro-government and admitting that there's not too much you can do about it and that it is a dictatorship no matter what they tell you. Constitutional republic, democracy, whatever they tell you it is, it's still a dictatorship because they can still take everything away from you in a heartbeat. They can still run your life. They can take all your money. They can take your land. They can take your freedom, your life. I don't care what's in the Constitution. And I've experienced it personally. As I've pointed out before, in 2003, I got picked up by the FBI under the Patriot Act. So I've known at least since then. But yeah, I've been accused of being pro-government. And somebody actually said that in a video today. Prove me wrong, you're pro-government. What am I going to prove to you? What am I going to prove to you? Believe whatever the hell you want. You want to pretend to be anarchist? Maybe that's what it is. And I get that a lot. Oh, that's why I'm an anarchist. I'm anti-government. You are? I bet you drive the speed limit. I bet you pay your taxes. I bet you follow as many rules as you can wherever you live to not get in trouble. Some anarchist. There's no such thing as an anarchist unless you are living 100 miles deep in the woods in a log cabin and there's no one else around. So yeah, I guess I'm pro-government because I just accept the fact that I know I'm stuck, and I just go along to get along, like pretty much almost everyone else on the planet. Some governments are worse than others. It could be a lot worse. It could be a hell of a lot worse than whatever we're putting up with in the U.S. Believe it. Anyone ever been overseas? You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that makes me pro-government, I guess. Sure. I suppose I'm pro-union too. You know that's a lie. Again, I've been in four of them. Well, technically 3 because 2 of them are 2 different divisions of the Teamsters. but it's still really 4. And they didn't do shit for me except cause me headaches. Fox Business article, since I brought up unions, it's been sitting there for a minute while we've been prattling on. New Jersey Transit Railway closed after locomotive engineers vote to strike, which is impacting 350,000 customers, commuters, people who can't get around because the transit authority is striking in New Jersey. Must be nice. Puck says many elements of the Patriot Act were used against Trump. Yeah. Well, I mean, you remember, some of you have seen that video from way back. You know what they did to me. Intercepting me in the courthouse, 2 federal agents and 6 sheriff's deputies dressed like SWAT, holding up a big picture of my face. Are you so-and-so? Let me call my attorney. No, you need to give us that phone. You're being held under the Patriot Act. You can't have access to a phone and you cannot talk to an attorney. You need to come with us right now. So much for my constitutional rights. There you go. Sven says anarchists still have a driver's license. Yeah. I guarantee you, if I drove through a stop sign and got pulled over, and the cop comes up to my window and I say, I'm an anarchist and I don't recognize your authority, he's not going to say, oh, sorry about that. I'll just leave you alone now. That isn't going to happen. Oh, no, Puck, I don't even know if I can read that. If I'm going to go over a certain cookbook on the Prepper channel, I wish I could. I wish I could. I don't even know if I can say that on ScrewTube without getting into trouble. That's one of those, and I've read that book in the 80s. I read that book in the 80s. I know what you're talking about. That's what Sven is saying. You can't even get the original one anymore. You can't even sell it, I don't think. Not the original. The original was pretty serious in comparison to any modern incarnation. But there you go. New Jersey Transit Railway shut down at midnight on Friday after more than 450 locomotive engineers voted to strike after failing to agree on wages. So basically this morning, midnight, the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, the BLET, the BLET, the BLET, agreed to strike at 12:01 a.m. Friday after not reaching a deal with the New Jersey Transit. The BLET is the only rail union out of 15 to not sign an initial pattern bargaining agreement, according to Governor Phil Murray. So every other union agreed, and this one is holding out. A tentative agreement was reached March 10th and was described as being fair and responsible at the time by BLET leadership, but the wage contract was not finalized. I like calling them BLET. It sounds really schleppy. And so, quote here, who is this? Transit president. Okay, I've always said that any deal we reach would have to be fair to our engineers and fiscally responsible without burdening our riders or the taxpayers in New Jersey, said New Jersey Transit President and CEO Chris Conyers. While we unfortunately were unable to finalize a deal Thursday night, I'm committed, as I have been since my first day on the job in January, to remaining at the bargaining table for as long as it takes to get an agreement finalized. We have an obligation to the hundreds of thousands of New Jersey transit customers to work around the clock until a deal is reached and rail service can resume for all those who rely on it every day. They're calling the strike a safe shutdown of the New Jersey Transit, the third largest system in the country. Third largest system in the country. It says it'll affect 350,000 customers. and that they encouraged employers to allow remote work for the time being so that available transportation systems aren't overwhelmed. Yeah, not everybody can work remotely. You're inconveniencing everybody because you're upset with what was considered to be a reasonable contract, which Blett already agreed that it was. Nature Nerd says in Little House on the Prairie, they determined it was easier to live in a town with government than to be self-sufficient in the countryside. And in the reunion show, they also dynamited the entire town rather than sell out to the railroad. No, Frankie, I don't think you're going to find a copy of the original in the public library. Luke Man wants to know what it is. I don't know if I can even describe it without getting into trouble. Luke Man wants to know what that cookbook is. It tells you how to do the kind of things that you used to see Steven Seagal or MacGyver do. You know what I mean? When they had to make something to hurt people. Cap says, does anything in the book say what does anything that book says work? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Oh my goodness. Now, whose quote is this? If I can get this to hold still long enough. Is this Murphy? It says, my message tonight to our locomotive engineers is this. The path to a new contract will be paved at the negotiating table, not the picket line. Ultimately, it is the people of New Jersey who will suffer because of this strike. I am calling on our locomotive engineers to remain at the negotiating table to reach a fair and affordable deal so we can get the trains moving again as soon as possible and avoid raising costs on riders and taxpayers. If you're negotiating for more money, it will raise taxes and it will raise fares. You must realize that. You must realize that. But I mean, this is all unions do anymore. This is all they do anymore. Is hold out for more money. Hold out for more money. They're not really helping anybody. They've bankrupted people. They've shut down businesses. I've pointed out many times, it's because of the steelworkers unions that almost all manufacturing went overseas. All the strikes they had in the 50s and 60s. And then the companies figured out it was cheaper to import steel from China than it was to make it here. It's because of the unions that Hostess went out of business. Negotiating with the union is how come Hostess shut down, although they were bought out. They were bought out. And so Hostess is under somebody else's umbrella now. I wonder how that stuff tastes now. I wouldn't eat it. You know, those Hostess cakes and stuff, and I look at those sometimes and I'm like, I remember eating that when I was a kid, and I wonder if it still tastes the same, because A, my tastes have changed over the years, and B, so have the ingredients. And there are times where I'll taste something that I would have eaten when I was a kid, And then I'm like, oh, this is awful. And have I changed that much, or has this changed that much? Becomes the question. That's the question. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that the ingredients nowadays are far worse than anything that I grew up with. I don't trust any of it, but I don't drink soda. I don't eat snack cakes. I don't eat Little Debbie. All of that kind of stuff. Um, Neither of us eat like that. My wife and I. We don't drink alcohol. We don't smoke. We don't. We don't like processed foods. So there you go. There you go. Oh, I got some more from Governor Newsom. Governor Nuisance from California. We talked about him extensively a couple of days ago. Raccoon is here, says, you're not missing anything. Those cakes smell and taste like chemicals. I'm not surprised. And JJ says they tried a Twinkie a few years ago. It seemed different from when I was a kid. I'm sure it did. I know that stuff has changed considerably. It's full of all sorts of chemicals and additives. And I'm like, where's the ingredients? Where's the real ingredients? You shouldn't have a bibliography of ingredients. When you go to eat something, it should be really simple. And it's not. It's just not. Jane's there. You missed Uncle. Uncle was just here, big boy. When I started, 25 pounds of happy tuxedo cat. He's a real happy guy now. He's changed so much from being a feral bully, really. Tuck is here. And Nature Nerd says non-union jobs get pay increases each year, and they don't have to wait for a contract. You know what it was for me with the unions specifically? It always felt to me like they worked against you. Every job I've ever had that had forced overtime, it was a union job, and it was a union contract that entitled the company to do that to you. And if you refused the overtime, you get penalized. Any place else, they ask you if you could work, and you're like, no, I can't do it. They leave you alone. Union jobs, forced overtime, that's a demerit. Oh my God. Puck, you trying to get me in trouble? I'm not reading that. I'm not reading that. Now I got all these questions about Uncle. He's just big. He's just a big boy. He was already big when we found him feral. And he's been TNVR'd now. And he just got bigger and bigger. He's about 25 pounds. And he doesn't eat any more than the other cats because they all get a measured amount. He eats. Come here, darling. Uh-oh, hold on. I got a guest appearance. Come here. Everybody loves you. Come here. Granny Smith, everybody. Hello, Granny. Oh, you're mad at me? What's the matter? Oh, she's mad. Something's upsetting her. Okay, sit down. Oh no, she got mad. Maybe I picked her up wrong. Because she did come running over when I called her. Now, we got an Associated Press article pulled up talking about Gavin Newsom. And I like that they're calling him out on this. It says California Governor Gavin Newsom tries to rebrand himself ahead of a potential presidential run. Please don't elect this idiot. Gavin Newsom hosts President Trump's allies on his podcast. He's pushing city officials to crack down on homeless encampments, and this week he proposed limiting health care coverage for immigrants in the country illegally. And we read that all, I believe, Wednesday. Make no mistake, California's Democratic governor is appealing to the political center and trying to shed his national reputation as a San Francisco liberal as he contemplates his next career move. Exactly what I was speculating at the time, because he's sitting there now. He's sitting there now trying to walk back all the stuff that he's been pushing for the entire time that he's been in office. Okay, all the stuff that he goes on about, all of the hardcore liberal agendas that he has going, and all the money that's been lost. Never mind the money that's been wasted. Damn near $100 billion unaccountable. Unaccountable. They don't even know where it is. Oh, Chinese hackers got our COVID money. We don't know what happened. Oh, $30 billion was spent on the homeless in the last 5 years, but we don't have a paper trail, so we don't know who got the money or what it was spent on. And now he's sitting there saying, I'm tired of everyone's excuses about the homeless. Oh, you know what? Ultimately, you're in charge, okay? You are in charge. It's just like in the military. What you gave your men instructions and they screwed it up, you're still responsible as their officer. You're still responsible. He's still responsible. He can blame whoever he wants. And now he's sitting there. Now he's sitting there blaming Trump. Oh, it's because of Trump's tariffs that California's in so much trouble. It wasn't in trouble before that. He's been in office just over 100 days. You're going to blame him for everything that's been going on in California for the last 20 years? The last, 6 of it on your watch, Newsom? I hope nobody falls for this guy. Yeah, Puck says it depends on Dominion. No kidding. No kidding. No kidding. And I go over and over it again. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I know they're all around 30 billion. 30 billion in COVID relief, allegedly hacked by Chinese hacktivists. 30-something billion spent on the homeless, but they don't know where or how or have anything to show for it because there's no paper trail. The money was just spent and they don't know what happened. 30 billion missing from their unemployment fund. No explanation. They don't know where it is. Damn near $100 billion missing from them. Never mind what they waste on other programs. On his watch. He can blame whoever he wants. He was still in charge. Tuck says 30 billion spent on homeless. Record homelessness seems wrong. It is. But now he's trying to walk it back and act like he's a different kind of governor. He's already said he's not running for the 2027 seat. This will be his last run, he claims. I hope that the rest of the country doesn't see this guy and take him seriously. Flukeman says Newsom has seen the writing on the wall. He's going to lose the next election and probably get Doge. He should, because that, and I've said it before, that government, all the leadership in California needs to be suspended and an interim government put in its place pending free election. And there needs to be an audit all the way up and down the board, from the guy who sweeps the gutters all the way to the chief executives that are running the state. You won't get the money back, but at least you might figure out what the hell happened. Yeah, Sven says tariffs cause retroactive destruction up to 10 years, I'm finding. Yeah, it travels in time. And Tuck says California Democrats love bragging about the size of their state's economy, but refuse to accept any blame for their problems. Yeah, and they've got great, there is a big economy there, but if you're spending annually 3 to 4 times what you're earning, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. This guy's a fraud. And we get there's bad politicians and then there's bad politicians. It's kind of like Bruce Willis in Sin City. There's wrong and then there's wrong and then there's this. And that's where we're at with California. It's ruined. Granted, it was already in trouble. It was already in trouble when Newsom took over. Okay. It was already in trouble when Newsom took over. But he didn't make it any better. He made it worse. He made it much worse. It's not an improvement. Speaking of weepy, disgusting liberals, it's an Axios article here. You might have heard this. Ben & Jerry's co-founder among those arrested at RFK Jr.'s testimony. That guy's still alive and still causing trouble. Does anybody buy Ben & Jerry's? Does anybody buy Ben & Jerry's? I would never, I don't care how good it is. I would never buy Ben & Jerry's just because of these guys. They've been doing this for decades. Screaming liberals. Really bad. There he is, virtue signaling by being disruptive. Ben & Jerry's co-founder Ben Cohen, among 7 people arrested during Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s testimony on Capitol Hill Wednesday. Cohen, who along with the ice cream company has long engaged in corporate political activism, indicated he was protesting the U.S. response to Israel and Hamas. Video from the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee hearing shows protesters yelling RFK kills people with hate before police had to escort them out. 7 people, including Cohen, were arrested on suspicion of crowding, obstructing, or incommoding, which means inconveniencing or distressing others, according to Capitol Police. Some of them, though not Cohen, were also accused of assault on an officer, as well as resisting arrest, per an emailed Capitol Police statement. Cohen was accused of crowding, obstruction, or incommoding, per the statement. I mean, you can protest without showing up in there or making an ass out of yourself. But this guy's been doing this kind of stuff for years, which is why I won't touch Ben & Jerry's. Just sell your damn ice cream. I don't ever hear shit from a Haagen-Dazs. I can't afford Haagen-Dazs, but just making the point. Or, Breyers. Do you ever hear any political statements from Breyers, or do they just sell their ice cream? Can't you just sell your ice cream? And how much money is Ben & Jerry's making that they can afford to be this way? Frankie said, what happened is that everyone thinks that's a nonprofit has their hand out asking for funds for their illegitimate social programs and giving kickbacks to the politicians through money laundering. Yeah. And Peter says he was on Tucker last week, a complete nut job. Who, Ben? Ben Cohen? Do you mean? Tuck's been boycotting Ben and Jerry's since '97. I've literally never eaten a bite of their product. Okay. But yeah, I would never buy their product. Just like, there's certain companies and they start getting too political, like Target. I don't want to hear about Target's political or social agendas. I'm tired of hearing it. I won't go into Target anymore. I won't go to a Target. Does Target care? Probably not. They'll get along fine without me though. You see what I'm saying? I don't want to hear you. Just sell your wares. Starbucks. I don't need to hear about your social agendas. Sell your damn coffee. Sell your damn coffee. And I see that on questionnaires all the time. Surveys. What's most important to you about a company? And it'll somewhere on that list is going to be something about social agendas, social outreach, political activism. That's the last thing I want to hear from a company. The last thing I want to hear from a company is their social agendas or their politics. Just sell it's ice cream, Ben and Jerry. Sell your damn ice cream. And he's going to show up at a health department meeting and start chanting with his little cronies and carry on. We have to put up with that. Disrupting things, making things more complicated. I get tired of it. The older you get, you understand why it is that when you were young, old people seemed really cranky and grumpy about everything. I bet. And that seems to be a growing problem in the United States and in Europe, where all these companies want to check boxes. They want to check the boxes off and virtue signal. And act like they're down with LGB or Black Lives Matters or something like that. Instead of just, again, selling your product. Can't you just sell your product? That's what Tuck is saying there. He says Ben and Jerry's is rabidly anti-2A going way back. That's also what Jane says. True, no politics, sell ice cream. Yeah, and Sven says most important thing for me is for them to have a good product and say thank you, come again. There you go. There you go. So we get ready to jump to the debt clock. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the debt clock, which has the Doge projection currently at $438 billion in savings. $438 billion in projected savings, which should relieve each taxpayer by $3,899. According to the debtclock.org. The Nature Nerd says, I thought unions were supposed to protect you from too much overtime, though. Yeah, you would think so. But I can't tell you how many times especially at Frito-Lay, they were really bad with that. That comment's way behind. How many times I was working at Frito-Lay and they'd come up, the guy, Stewart would come up to me, You're staying over and you're in early tomorrow. Shit. Seriously? So I got a 12-hour shift today and a 12-hour shift tomorrow. Thanks. And that would happen all the time. All the time. And again, any job where it was forced overtime, it was always union. And there's a demerit system, like you have like plus, if I'm trying to remember how Frito-Lay did it, +6. And if you refuse overtime, they'll take one away. So you're +5, +4, +3, +2, +1, 0, -1, -2, -3. And then when you get to -3, you have to attend a meeting because you're facing termination. And then, or is it a half a demerit? I think it's a half a demerit. Excuse me. Half a demerit for refusing overtime. So you go from +6 to +5.5. And if you see the guy coming, because it's a specific guy who's in charge of that, if you see him coming and before he opens his mouth, you say quarter, then you get 0.25 instead of 0.5 demerit. It's some kind of bullshit game that was started by that's all in the union. All in the union. Ladybug says, not going to lie, I'm eating Little Davy's oatmeal cream pies. Oh, no. And Frankie made a donation to the channel for the cats. Thank you, Frankie. I appreciate that. Of course, I've got, 15 I'm taking care of right now. Peter says he never gets the Coffee Talk notifications. I'm sorry to hear that. And I'll remind everybody real quick before we sign out there, starting in the first week of June, if you're watching this on Coffee Talk, if you're watching Coffee Talk on Prepper University, the podcast, it will revert back to Coffee Talk, the channel, and that's the link on the screen at Coffee Talk Live. So that's where you will find us as of the first week of June if you typically watch this on Prepper University. So there we go. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube on Coffee Talk. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. Special thanks again there for Frankie making a donation to the channel today to help the cats out. Always appreciated. And thank you everyone else for joining us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will catch you again on Monday.